Stanley, Scuba, Sailing, and Adventures. Scuba diving, the British Virgin Islands, dive site, Dead Chest West. This dive site is located at the southwest corner of Dead Chest Island. It's listed as having a maximum depth of 60 feet. The minimum skill level recommendation is that of open water diver. This dive site is really only exposed to weather patterns from the east. It combines both boulder fields and coral canyons into one dive site. Starting from the mooring, you descend into an area of coral canyons. The ridges of the canyons start at a depth of about 45 feet. The bottoms of the canyons themselves are between 50 to 60 feet deep. The canyons run roughly north to south. The dive guide recommends that you explore these as you work your way to the west. The guide to diving and snorkeling in the British Virgin Islands mentions this dive site having an archway. The only direction it gives is that the archway is in a canyon near the mooring in about 57 feet of water. I don't think our dive guide had been on this site before, so unfortunately we did not see the arch on our dive. The guide to diving and snorkeling goes on to say that you should follow one of the canyons north toward the island. In about 40 feet of water, the bottom composition changes to be primarily rocky rubble. Closer to shore, there are large boulders. Similar to many of the other dive sites here, a lot of the rocks break the surface near the island. I could see it being very seriously dangerous if you were to have to make an emergency ascent and be caught in the surge near where the water breaks on the rocks. The guide goes on to recommend that when you reach the shore of the island, you'll be in about 25 feet of water. You should then turn east and follow the shoreline. After this, there will be fewer boulders and you'll come instead to an area of small caves. We did encounter those caves and they were quite exciting. You'll see later in the video there was a bait ball inside one of the small caves. After exploring the caves, you should head south from the small cove, and when you reach about 45 feet of water, you'll be near the arch in the mooring. Again, we never did see the arch, or at least I didn't. This video was recorded over the course of a single tank dive. This dive started at just about 5 o'clock in the evening and lasted almost exactly an hour. Because of the time of the year, this really was a dusk dive. The weather didn't help either. When we entered the water, it was just starting to rain. I didn't have my video lights with me, as when we had gotten into the dinghy to head out to the dive site, the sun was out. The clouds had moved in quite rapidly, and again, it got very dusky just before we got in the water. Here my dive buddy's helping me out with a flashlight to get a little light on this eel. The visibility wasn't spectacular to begin with, but the lighting certainly didn't help it at all. So it's not quite as bad as it looks in the video, but again, not spectacular. I don't know if you noticed that, but someone brought a laser pointer, which I found quite distracting and not pleasing at all. Not sure why they put the laser pointer on the green moray eel when I had my camera less than a foot from the eel. Obviously, I'd already seen the eel. During the dive, my computer recorded a maximum depth of 53 feet and an average depth of 33 feet. The temperature recorded was a comfortable 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Here you can clearly see that the bottom composition has started to change as described in the dive briefing guide. It was quite an interesting dive site. There were numerous fish, as you can see, not in this particular area, but in the previous section of the video. Also, there were a lot of interesting geological formations. This pinnacle was not described in the diving snorkeling guide, but I found it quite interesting. I love looking up and watching the water break on top of it. It must have been over 40 feet tall. The area around the base of the pinnacle was quite barren, and I suspect that it was subject to a lot of surge and current, and that was probably why there wasn't a lot of growth or a lot of life around the base of it. Here I came across a little porcupine puffer. I was trying to get a better angle here, but he wasn't being very patient with me and just ducked back into the hole eventually. I waited for a little while, but I don't think he was interested in having his video or picture taken. Here's the very edge of the shoreline. You can see the water breaking on the top. This is just before we encountered the small caves. The caves were really interesting. Here's that bait ball I was talking about. You can see my dive buddy's got a flashlight, and with the light you can really see all the fish in the cave. There just wasn't enough light for the camera to capture it. I actually could see quite a bit with just my eyes, but unfortunately the camera wasn't able to capture it. It was quite beautiful, and I wish I'd had my lights on my camera with me for this dive, but I didn't anticipate it being quite so dark when we started. See, there's a bunch of coral at the bottom of this particular cave as well. This was just before we turned south to head back to the mooring.
Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment.